You didn't lose yourself all at once. It happened slowly, in small surrenders. A comment here, a rejection there. Someone important to you, maybe a parent, a partner, a classroom full of people who laughed, and you made a decision so fast you didn't even feel it. Stop being that. Be something they'll accept, and you did. You adjusted, you performed, you got so good at it that eventually you forgot it was a performance. Carl Jung called what you buried the persona, the mask worn to navigate the social world, but the mask was only supposed to be a tool. For millions of people, it became a replacement. The mask swallowed the face. There's a mechanism behind how this theft happens and how most people make it worse every single time they try to fix it. I'll come back to that, and when I do, something about how you've been living will make a different kind of sense. But first, what exactly was taken from you? Not your memories, not your preferences, something subtler, something that existed before the world told you who to be. Most people think identity is a collection, your job, your opinions, your relationships, your past, a curated shelf of things that happen to you. That's not identity, that's biography. Identity in the deeper sense is direction. It's the inner compass that points toward what feels true for you, not comfortable, not approved of. True. Nietzsche called it becoming who you are. He didn't mean discovering some fixed self hidden beneath the surface. He meant the active, relentless process of choosing, deliberately, honestly, repeatedly, what you stand for and what you refuse to carry. The philosopher James Hillman called it the acorn theory, the idea that inside every person is something original, a particular shape of soul that wants to grow into something specific, not whatever the soil demands, something specific. You've felt this, some version of yourself that you keep almost being before you pull back, a thought you don't say aloud, a choice you almost make before the familiar fear arrives. That's not random anxiety. That's your original self trying to surface through years of sediment. There's also something neuroscience confirms. The brain encodes identity as prediction. Your nervous system builds a model of who you are, and it filters experience through that model. When you shrink your identity, your brain actually begins to filter out evidence that contradicts the smaller story. You stop noticing opportunities. You stop recognizing yourself in possibilities that belong to you. This is why the theft compounds over time. Every year you perform a self that isn't yours. The neural pathways of the real self become quieter. Not gone, quieter. The work of reclamation isn't excavation, it's reactivation. There wasn't one person who stole your identity. There were three mechanisms. I call this the sediment model because that's exactly what happens. Layer after layer, the original self gets buried. The first thief is conditional approval. Early in life, love often came with conditions attached. Not maliciously, this is what unhealed people do to children, not because they're cruel, but because they were conditioned the same way. You were praised when you were useful, pleasant, agreeable, quiet, high-achieving. You were met with silence, disappointment, or correction when you weren't. Children are extraordinarily good at reading this. They adapt instantly, and they conclude something devastating. The real me is not safe here. Your mind will say, that was a long time ago, I'm an adult now. But the adaptation doesn't expire when you turn 18. It becomes the operating system. You carry the original programmer's preferences long after they've left the room. The second thief is social mirroring gone wrong. We form identity partly by seeing ourselves reflected in others' reactions. This is normal and necessary. Humans are social creatures. The problem arrives when the mirror is distorted, when the people around you consistently reflect a reduced, manageable version of you, when they're most comfortable with your smallness. Social mirroring shapes identity like water shapes stone, slowly, invisibly, and almost irreversibly, if you don't notice it happening. The third thief is the most dangerous, self-betrayal. This is the one people never want to examine. At some point, you stopped being adjusted by external pressure and started doing it to yourself. You preemptively shrunk. Before anyone could reject you, you rejected yourself. Before the room could laugh, you made yourself smaller. Self-betrayal is when you become the thief. And this is the moment the second loop closes in on itself, because the tool we use to heal from this is also the tool we most commonly corrupt. I'll show you what that means in just a moment.
If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support.
The process I've found most grounded in Jungian depth psychology, in Stoic practice, in neuroscience, is something I call the signal layer act model. 3 components, 3 disciplines, done in order, done consistently. The first is signal learning to hear the original self again. Your authentic self doesn't announce itself with confidence and clarity after years of suppression. It murmurs. It shows up as discomfort in situations where you should feel nothing. It shows up as inexplicable envy, not of what someone has, but of what someone is being. It shows up as the fleeting thought you dismiss before it's finished forming. Stop dismissing it. Here's the exercise. Do this now, right where you are. Think of the last time you felt that thing, the quiet resentment when someone else did the thing you've been afraid to do. The flash of "I want that," followed immediately by the list of reasons why not. Don't go to the reasons, stay in the flash. What was the want, not the obstacle, not the practical objection? What was the naked first-second want, before the voice of self-betrayal began its commentary? Write it somewhere, not to act on it yet, just to acknowledge it as data, as signal. Because your original self has been sending signals this entire time, you've just been trained to classify them as noise. The second component is layer, understanding which version of you is speaking. Not everything you feel or want comes from your original self. Some of it comes from the adapted self, the persona that formed under pressure. Some comes from the wounded self, the part that still flinches at old pain. And some occasionally comes from the authentic self, the part that existed before the conditioning began. When a thought or desire arises, the discipline is to ask, which layer is this from? This takes practice, it takes uncomfortable honesty, but it becomes distinguishable over time. The adapted self wants safety and approval. The wounded self wants to avoid specific pain. The authentic self wants, even when the wanting is inconvenient, even when no one would approve, to be more fully itself. The third component is act, micro-commitments to the authentic self. Not grand gestures, not quitting your job tomorrow or ending relationships dramatically. Micro-acts. The opinion you share in a meeting when you'd normally stay silent. The no you give when the old version of you would have said yes to avoid discomfort. The creative project you work on for 20 minutes before anyone else is awake. Each act of alignment with your authentic self strengthens the neural pathway of that self. It's not metaphor. Repeated chosen behavior literally reshapes how the brain models identity. Here's the uncomfortable truth behind the second open loop I planted earlier. The tool most people use to reclaim themselves is self-awareness, and self-awareness in the wrong hands becomes the most sophisticated form of self-betrayal ever invented. Here's how it happens. You begin the process. You read something like this. You feel the recognition, the motivation, the sense of possibility, and then you go into your head. You analyze your childhood. You trace your patterns. You build elaborate psychological maps of why you are the way you are, and nothing changes. Because insight without action is just another way of staying comfortable. The brain gets the reward of feeling like it's working on the problem while changing nothing about behavior. The adapted self is brilliantly clever. It will let you think about your authentic self for years as a substitute for being it. You'll feel the urge, and you've probably felt it before, to understand everything first, to achieve perfect clarity before you move, to wait until you've sufficiently processed the past before you begin living the future. That urge is not wisdom. That urge is fear, wearing the costume of preparation. The Stoics were ruthless about this. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about the theory of virtue in his private journals. He wrote commands to himself. Do this, be this, now. Action first. Understanding catches up. The relapse-proof system works like this. If you feel the pull to shrink, to perform, to preemptively diminish yourself, then you use the 2-minute reset. Stop. Name what's happening. This is the adapted self activating. Say it plainly, even if only internally, then ask one question. What would I do if no one's approval were at stake? Not what you'd say. What would you do? Then do something, anything, in that direction within the next 10 seconds. Even something small. Especially something small. The mechanism is breaking the automatic loop before it completes. The adapted self's power comes from how fast and unconscious the activation is. You interrupt it. You name it. You choose differently, even slightly. Over time, the new choice becomes the faster response. If you've stayed with this, something is clarifying for you right now. This is the moment to say it clearly. The self you're reclaiming is not a perfect, untroubled version of you that existed once and was stolen. It never existed in complete form. The authentic self isn't something you return to. It's something you become for the first time, forged from what was original in you, shaped by what you've survived, chosen deliberately rather than adopted by default. Jung's word for this was individuation, the lifelong process of becoming a whole person, not by eliminating the persona, not by bypassing the shadow, but by integrating all of it consciously. You don't reject what you adapted into. You don't disown the version of yourself that learned to survive. That version was smart. It kept you safe in environments that required it. You simply stop letting it run the show in environments where it's no longer necessary. Here's the question most people never think to ask themselves: where am I still operating as though I need to survive something that's already over? The meeting where you don't speak isn't a threat. The creative idea you keep private isn't dangerous. The relationship where you keep the real version of yourself hidden, that person is not the one who originally taught you to hide. You're still fighting a war that ended years ago, and the cost of that fight is your life. This is where the work becomes daily, not dramatic. Daily, the signal layer act model, isn't something you complete once in a weekend of reflection and then consider done. It's a practice, like physical training. You don't do push-ups until you're fit and then stop. You do them because the body requires consistent challenge to maintain what it has built. Your identity requires the same. Here's what this comes down to. Your identity was shaped under conditions you didn't choose, by people who were shaped by conditions they didn't choose. The adapted self that emerged from that process isn't your enemy. It was a brilliant survival strategy. But survival and authenticity are not the same goal. The Three Thieves, conditional approval, distorted social mirroring, and self-betrayal, work together and compound over time. The sediment model shows you how the original self gets buried, layer by layer, without a single dramatic moment of loss. The signal layer act framework gives you something practical, not a theory to contemplate, a practice to use. Hear the signal, identify the layer, act in small alignment, repeat until the authentic self becomes the faster, louder response. The relapse protocol is simple. Name the adapted self when it activates, ask the single clarifying question, move even slightly in the direction of authenticity within 10 seconds, and the deeper understanding you carry forward. Reclaiming your identity isn't returning to something. It's becoming something that never fully existed yet. Something more honest, more specific, more genuinely yours than anything you've been allowed to be before. The Stoics called this living according to nature. Not nature as in instinct. Nature as in the deepest truth of what you are. You already know what some of that truth is. You've known for a long time. You've just been waiting for permission. You don't need it. If this reached something in you, subscribe. There's a full series building on identity, shadow, and power dynamics that goes deeper than this. and share this with someone who's been performing a version of themselves that doesn't quite fit. The question to leave you with, drop it in the comments. What part of yourself have you been hiding the longest?